Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, powered by Braden. This is your front row seat to the stories of local leaders, both nonprofit and for-profit, who are shaping our community. Every episode brings you leadership insights, lessons from challenges, and practical strategies you can use today. And yes, we'll keep it real and have some fun along the way. If you're ready to elevate your leadership, hit subscribe and follow us on LinkedIn for updates and behind-the-scenes content. Now, let's dive in. Hey everybody, Jason over here with another episode of the Elevate Powered by Braden Podcast. And I'll tell you, these have been a blast. We've had conversations with nonprofits, for-profit businesses all across the board, but leaders leading their organizations, learning their stories, their background, their history. And we've had a little bit of fun along the way. And today I know will be an amazing time talking with my new friend, Michelle. But Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me, Jason. It's good to be here.
So you are at Forum Credit Union today, and you are in what role?
My role is Chief People Officer. So I oversee our human resources and talent development, call it our people and culture.
Okay, gotcha.
Credit union.
Well, I know the credit union's got a long history, and we'll get to that. But let's go back to the beginning. So where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, so up in the northern part of the state.
The Fort Fun.
Fort Fun.
All right.
Fort Fun, that's right. So I was born there, lived there until I was in the ninth grade.
Okay.
My dad ended up taking a job that was about an hour south in the Marion, Indiana area. So we moved when I was in ninth grade.
Yep.
So, I graduated from high school at Madison Grant High School in Fairmount, Indiana, in Great County.
Fairmount, Indiana.
That's right. But I always think of Fort Wayne as kind of my hometown because that's where I spent a good deal of time growing up.
Yeah, I was a Northeast guy too. I was from Auburn. And so Fort Wayne, so which high school did you start at in Fort Wayne?
Northside.
Northside, okay, that's right. I remember that gym pretty well in there. We've had a couple of Northside people, I think, because that show, trying to think. Oh, Jeff Hagerman from Hagerman Construction lived on Northside. Yeah, so
That's
I was start. Yeah, he was a Northside guy. I'm pretty sure because I think he was what he called them river rats.
Yeah.
What he said his nickname was. Okay, so ninth grade in Fort Wayne, but then ended up in Fairmount. So what's high school look like? Were you in some clubs, activities? What do you look like?
Well, it took a minute to be the new kid. I think looking forward, the thought of being in a job where I'm doing things like this would be very surprising because I was pretty shy as a kid. I wouldn't say I was introverted, but I was kind of shy.
Okay.
And it took a little time to warm up.
Yeah.
In new settings. But when we moved, I was kind of finding my footing going from a big school, big city. Not that Fort Wayne is huge, but going to a one stoplight town where our entire school system was smaller than my elementary school was growing up, so very just different environments. So kind of finding my footing there and kind of finding my little core group of friends at school. But, once I got in there, it was everything that I did just revolved around being around people, just the clubs and activities. It kind of didn't really matter what it was. I wasn't really a theater kid. I wasn't into sports, but if there were social settings where I could just be around a group of people, like sign me up. So
Gotcha.
once I got comfortable there, then, that's all it took.
So not introverted, but a little bit shy.
Yeah.
But certainly a people person.
Mhm.
Okay, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So you're in high school. You finish up your 4 years there, and you think about what's going to come next. You're in a small town in Indiana. What do you think you're going to do next? Where do you want to go?
Yeah. Well, the reason we moved, the job that my dad took was he started working at Indiana Wesleyan University in Marion.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a big family connection to that university, deep history there with people in my family going there. And so that was always not really assumed that I would go there, but I genuinely wanted to. Just really, it was kind of what I knew, and it was something that was very comfortable. And I was excited to kind of to go there. Like other people I knew, I had friends there as well. And so that's kind of where I was headed. And I always thought I'd be a teacher. So that was the path that I kind of envisioned for myself, was to go to college, major in elementary education, and find myself in a classroom somewhere.
Okay.
And so that was really, I thought about what's next. If I could kind of map it all out, that's where I was headed.
That's where you're at. So
Yeah.
you're going to go to Indiana Wesleyan, and you wanted to be a teacher. What was the genesis? Like, was there teachers in your family? Did you just decide that that's what you were thinking that was going to be a good opportunity? Where did that come from?
I think I'm not gonna get into a lot of depth on this, but I think growing up, there were just some girl jobs and boy jobs, and that was kind of on the list of girl jobs. I grew up in a very girl dominant family, all sisters, girl cousins, aunts. Everybody was a female in my family, and that was just kind of on that list.
Okay.
Not that it was enforced. I could have done anything I wanted, but it was just a natural kind of like, okay, well, I could be a teacher. I liked kids. I was like the neighborhood babysitter when I was probably 11 years old. Have no business being responsible for another human life, but people said, hey, people trusted me with their kids. So I was the neighborhood babysitter, and I was a camp counselor when I was, a teenager and things like that. So just the idea of being a teacher was kind of natural.
Yeah.
Natural fit. I just seemed like something I wanted to do.
Yeah, all those things in the background, right? Being a babysitter at 11 and those types of things. It takes a lot of trust, right, for people to do that. But it is a different time, right? And so different. Yeah, sure. There was no apps probably back then for all that kind of stuff. Yeah, same thing as me, right? It wasn't an app for the babysitters back.
Exactly.
All right, so Indiana Wesleyan, strong family ties. Your dad was working there. So you go into the university and you're going to study elementary ed. So how does that 4 years go for you there?
Well, I lived on campus for 2 and then ended up getting married. We're getting kind of deep on that here. Ended up getting married after my second year of school. And so we, moved off campus, and we were kind of the poor college students who got married.
Yeah.
So that took me to more of a part-time status living off campus. And so so my traditional student experience very quickly shifted to more of a non-traditional student. So kind of cobbled the rest of it together over time, and, so in the meantime, I went from being a full-time student to a part-time student. I started teaching pre-K.
Okay.
Part-time. I work like Monday, Wednesday, Friday and teach in a classroom, and then Tuesday, Thursday, I'd take my classes and do my homework on the weekend. So that was kind of like for a while. And so I continued doing that for quite a while, actually, and really loved that early childhood age. Kind of a twist of fate, kind of a irrelevant story, but I ended up teaching kindergarten at the same place where I was. They had a pre-K and kindergarten. I ended up teaching kindergarten. Thought things were just kind of going my way, and that's kind of when there was a plot twist that kind of built the rest of my career, and I didn't really even know it. So
okay, interesting. So pre-K, and you're liking it. Get into kindergarten. You're enjoying that as well. Enjoy working with the kids, the families, and teaching. So a plot twist. So where do you go from there, and what's the twist?
So my boss at the time, she asked me to do a training session for teachers in like a staff meeting. And I've told the story before, and I always joke that, it was just something she probably didn't want to do. And she knew I was always looking for a project. I was always doing the extra little things, or, planning the, different team building things.
So you like that anyways, and either you were known around the she was a little somebody that, hey, I could plan the meeting or whatever.
So she would just kind of know that something I don't really want to do, or something that needs to be done, I could give it to somebody.
Sure.
Oh, I need somebody to do a training session. Hey, Michelle, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah.
I need you to do this. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that adult learning was a thing. I didn't know that in itself was a career path.
Okay.
And I always joke that she had no idea the Pandora's box that she opened by asking me to do that.
Yeah.
And it was probably terrible. Go back and listen. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just winging it.
Yeah.
But I did it, and it was fun, and it just flexed a different muscle. Having kind of a classroom, but of adults and peers rather than little kids.
Yeah, completely. Right.
So I just told her afterwards, if you want to do that again, I'll do it. Okay. And that turned into this thing that I just started doing. It was maybe once a quarter, every couple of months, I'd do this in-service training, this professional development. It was very basic. It didn't follow any, fury or anything. I just kind of cobbled it together. But I had so much fun doing it. And over time, I just thought, I don't dislike working with kids, but I kind of like working with adults a little bit more.
Okay.
And so this was in the late 90s. So, I'm just very early internet days where I'm just kind of doing some self-teaching and some research, and went to the library and checked out some books and things like that to learn more about it, and realized companies hire people to do that for a job. I had no idea.
Right.
Most of us find our way in through some accidental path, that just kind of opens the door. And that was mine.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. And so I just started looking for more opportunities to do that kind of work, and eventually made the shift.
No kidding. So late 90s, your boss, principal, right? Go ahead.
Kind of an executive director.
Yeah. Okay. So they're saying, hey, I need some help. You really start to enjoy it. And so how long do you keep teaching and kind of doing this little project before you go out and find that next role?
And it was a few years, and that I did that, and part of that also, I had my second child during that time, and I had planned to stay home for a little while because my oldest wasn't in school yet, and so thought, well, we'll get her to school, and then then I'll go back to work at some point, and that didn't last very long for me. So I just wasn't wired that way. So I started doing that a little bit on the side and continued that research when I ended up being on maternity leave.
Okay.
And never went back.
Just never went
back. I wouldn't say I went full on into a learning and development role, or, certainly not HR immediately, but I found a couple of roles over the course of a few years that were kind of bridge the gap between what I knew and what I wanted to do. And then just kind of slowly kind of pivoted, but never went back to a school environment, a real classroom environment, except for a training room.
Yeah. So you like training, you like working with adults, you leave the classroom setting. So what are the types of things that you do before you end up getting to where you are today? So, because like you said, you mentioned flex the different muscles, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of those things that you got a chance to do before you end up, here at Forum?
That's a great question. And, I'll just kind of use the same metaphor. I did the reps. It's not just once to flex a muscle one time, you have to keep working at it. And I just kind of found when I got into kind of that entry level training specialist role, learning and development specialist, whatever the job title was, that first full-time role, I was in the classroom all the time. And I was learning as I was doing it. I was learning what it's like to work with adult learners, to work with people who come in the door with their own ideas, their own baggage, their own experience, both at work and in life. It's very different than more that authoritative, I'm the teacher, you're the student relationship. And I just saw the classroom in that regard as a lab where I was just figuring it out, trying new things, and just really falling in love with the profession.
Yeah.
And that's where I continued to learn. And then over time, I just kind of traded up a little bit and continued to build my career over the course of a number of years. But
Gotcha. Okay. So it's interesting. And I like the way you said that. You fell in love with the career. But a lot of people tend to be a bit fearful of that, right? They're a little bit afraid of the unknown, and they don't necessarily want to learn. You mentioned you talked like it being a lab, right? So you were now going in and trying to test out things, test out some theories to build some best practices. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right. So, so over time, you're doing those things, you're putting in the reps. Ultimately, how long have you been with Forum? How long have you been with that team there?
I've been there 11 years now.
Okay, 11 years. So somewhere 2015-ish, 2016, you joined Forum. And what does it look like? Are you coming into Forum in HR? What's the role? How does that transpire for you?
I'll take a step back from there. Before I came to Forum, I went from that frontline trainer role to more of a learning and development manager, talent development manager role. And I had been doing that for a while.
Okay.
And had a need. The company I was with prior to Forum, I had the seat as a manager on their kind of HR leadership team. I had this front row seat to know that things weren't great there. And there was some downsizing happening, and it was a little rocky. And so I just kind of started putting some feelers out there to see I might need to find something new at some point.
Sure.
And a colleague of mine that I served on a board with, that was another thing that was pivotal in my growth and development, was getting involved with the local ATD chapter, Association for Talent Development.
Oh,
And
great.
I was on the board there, and a fellow board member just casually said in a board meeting, "Hey, I'm going to be adding a talent development manager to my team at Forum. And it's not going to start for a few months. I don't even have a job description yet. It's a brand new position. But if you all know of anybody,
No kidding.
just let me know."
Yeah.
And so I pulled her aside after the meeting and said, "Hey, so I might be interested." But I'm like, I might be interested in that because it might be time for me to make a move. And this was probably in, September, October. And I started at Forum in January, first of the year, right when
No kidding.
she said that the position was going to start. So sure enough, I did. I was already a member of Forum,
Okay.
so I had accounts there. I was familiar with it as an employer through her,
Sure.
through our working together on the board with our local ATD chapter. So I knew it was a reputable employer. I knew it was one of the best places to work in Indiana. It had a really good reputation and something that I thought, okay, if I need to make a move, I need to make a move to something stable because where I'm at right now doesn't feel that way. So
Okay.
so that kind of brought me in from kind of that talent development manager role to a talent development manager role at Forum.
Yep.
But different culture, different take on it for sure. So
Yeah, completely right. So the organization you're with before, some
Yeah.
challenges, some downsides, you got to see some things that maybe could be done a little differently. And so
Yeah.
coming into Forum, you've got a good background at this point, and you've really flexed your muscle when it comes to the learning and development space.
Mhm.
So that particular role that you start, it's part of the HR team. How does that work inside of an organization like Forum? And then what's that look like for you there?
Yeah, it takes a lot of different shapes. I think every company has their own relationship between HR and a learning function. Over my career, I've reported to a specific department. I've reported to more of an operations function through HR. That's a little bit of everything. At Forum at the time, and it's funny you asked that because it's kind of an interesting part of the story. We were separate entities, but reported to the same executive leader when I first joined. There was the HR function, there was talent development or organizational development function. And both had a leader over the department reporting to what is now the chief people officer role. And that's just kind of where I came in and kind of that middle management layer. And we shared an office space, very collaborative in a lot of ways, but the two functions were siloed.
Okay.
There was very much our team and your team happening with it. Not always in a bad way, but I always just kind of felt like it could have been a little more collaborative than it was.
Sure.
Considering the close proximity we all shared and a lot of the programs we both support. Think of the hiring and onboarding process. We've got the recruiter living on the HR side, and you've got the onboarding, kind of the learning and development happening on the talent development side.
Yeah.
So that's just one example where I always felt like we could be
A little more,
aligned
a little bit, because from an individual perspective, you hire somebody, they're going to walk through a process.
Yeah.
And so for them, it should be as clean as possible, as easy, as seamless as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in on the talent side and get started in there. So what's it look like for you? What do you do day to day? And
Yeah. When I came in there, I inherited a team. And that was something in and of itself that I'd managed people before. But what I saw was the investment in people was so different at Forum compared to where I'd been in not just the previous organization, but just ever.
really,
For in relation to the size of a company that Forum is, today we have about 425 employees. 11 years ago, I think we were probably around 300, 350, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So, we've grown quite a bit in a decade. And the number of people primarily focused on developing people. That alone sent a very strong message to say, hey, I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
But I inherited a team that was passionate and doing really great work. And so much so that they needed a manager to come in to help manage the day-to-day with the team.
Oh, wow.
So you think of all of the standard programming, like your onboarding programs and career development and personal skills and professional skills and compliance training and all of the things that have to get done
Yep.
in an organization. I came into a team that was operating really well, had a very solid leader with tremendous experience, and that was somebody that I had known for a long time.
Sure.
So I felt very prepared to come into that and to feel out what was already there, and then to start using my experience to kind of help influence where we went moving forward.
Okay, gotcha. So it's good to hear, right? Because one of the things, onboarding can be challenging for folks, no matter where they go, right? It's new, it's different. And if you create a really great experience for those folks, that you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? And that's really the first impression for the business. It's great to hear that Forum does that. So you're coming in and you're on that team, but we know by the screen behind us that you're the CPO now. So what's the journey look like over the last 11 years?
It's been a wonderful journey, and one of those you start with a great company and never look back. I feel like my past experience kind of led me to Forum, and then I've been able to just kind of take it just day by day. But I've built a really wonderful chapter of my career at Forum. I was in the talent development manager role for about 4.5 years. And then my leader, the one that I had known for a long time, she left to take an opportunity with another organization. They didn't have to promote me then. They could have hired somebody from outside, but they didn't.
Okay.
And they took a chance on me and promoted me into AVP of talent development, AVP of organizational development. I can't remember exactly, and then within a year later, they promoted me again to vice president of the team. And so I was running that function at that point, the whole department, and reporting to the chief people officer.
Yeah.
And really, when I look back over my full career, I really feel like I came alive in that role when I was in that VP role.
All right.
And, you talk about strengths and capability and the things that light you up. And there are certain roles over the long haul. We're talking over 20 years at that point. And there are certain things that you feel like you're just on fire and you just do really well that come very naturally, and other things you don't. I mean, we always have both in our lives and our work. But I felt when I was in that operational manager role, I struggled more than in other roles.
Interesting. What was the difference in that operational manager role that you felt like you struggled? What was the difference?
I felt like in that role, I was always responsible for carrying out somebody else's vision.
Oh, okay.
Because there was always somebody making the decision.
Somebody says, I need you to go this way. And you're okay.
You're going to do.
Okay. So they were creating it, and you wanted to be someone creating the vision. Okay, so you had a little bit of a mismatch internally, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I didn't know it at the time. I was just thought, well, when do I get frustrated? And when I look back, I'm like, the moments I was frustrated were the moments where I didn't feel like I had a voice in the vision.
Yeah.
I might have had an idea. I might have had something, but if it didn't align with where my leaders wanted to take things, I would just be like, well, why aren't they listening to me?
Right.
And it predates my role at Forum when I came in. I just feel like anywhere in that middle management layer, it wasn't bad, but the moments I got frustrated were because of that. And I felt it the most in that role. Yeah. But when I got into a more strategic role, and over time, you take all the assessments and the DISC and the Myers-Briggs, all Strengths Finder and all of that. And I learned my strengths. And I'm like, that's why I'm getting frustrated.
Yeah.
Because the work I was doing was in this execution role that required me to be in doing more detailed work and following through on other people's vision rather than casting my own.
Right.
And having a say in the direction of things, because I'm a more future-minded thinker.
Yeah, right.
I didn't have that language earlier in my career, but when I got there, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
This is good. This is where I'm supposed to be.
This is where life's was,
We should just cut to the chase, and it just have been a VP, 20 years ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
Should have just been the boss.
Right.
So it's interesting. I'm going to take a little bit of time and talk about, like, Myers-Briggs,
Sure.
DISC, and
Sure.
PI and all those things. So a lot of folks, when they feel like, hey, HR talent, they want us to take this test, they want us to do all these things. I think people miss the fact that it's really a great opportunity for them to understand some of their strengths. We all have strengths and weaknesses. They're great. We all like to be communicated in a certain way. And if we know somebody else's communication style, we feel like we maybe get along a little bit better, right? And so, but it's interesting you said that you came alive because you started to learn these things. So within Forum, you mentioned DISC. Is everybody taking those types of things? And I'm curious, like, how does that get implemented across 425 people? And like, what's that look like on a daily basis? How do people leverage some of that information?
I love that you asked this because I love what we're doing. I wouldn't say that we have it, that it's perfect by any means, but I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. We use the predictive index, or PI. That's kind of our assessment of choice.
Sure.
We've been using that for 7 years, maybe now.
Yeah.
7 or 8 years. And it started as a need for a very sound pre-hire assessment. And what we were using before was not something you would want to use. We were using DISC, which is great. It's a great tool, but it's communication, it's teamwork, it's leadership, it's coaching. It's not a pre-hire assessment. So we were looking for a tool to use that was something you could use. It was EEOC compliant, things that you could use at the interview process or the application process, as well as a tool that we could use ongoing as a development tool or a leadership tool. And PI was a great fit for us. And, just shout out to Advisa, local organization.
Heather Haas, right?
Yeah.
That's actually,
Yep.
We
partner with them, and it has been a game changer for us. Because we started out exactly there. Because we also had to sort of scale back on what we were doing with DISC because we didn't want to speak 2 languages. Mm-hmm. We knew that was just going to confuse people. So we started with the assessment, and then we started with our leaders so they could understand the PI as a hiring manager, as a leader of a team, as a coach, but most importantly, for self-awareness on how they're showing up as a leader.
Absolutely, right?
And from there, we've branched out to embed it into so many different touch points and programs. Someone on the team had this idea last year to do an entire week dedicated. We call it the PI Power Week. And we just did all kinds of things. And so that just rallied the team around learning more about your style, and then your reference type and your own profile, and how you're showing up for development, but then how to share that with others.
Yeah, sure.
And say, this is me, and this is who I am, and these are the needs I carry with me every day. And it's created a great week. I hope we do that again in the future.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. But we find ways to incorporate it into a lot of different conversations. It can't just be something you take the assessment one time and it sits on a shelf somewhere. You have to find a way to work it into your life.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a great point to review when people are promoted, when people change roles, when a new leader comes in. We do team-based conversations and workshops, and you name it. And we're finding a way to pull PI into the conversation.
That's cool. PI is like, you've got the middle line is A, B, C, D, right?
Yep.
These like detail. So I remember my PI, my detail is somewhere over here to the left. I didn't have any.
Yep.
Right. I think B was like person that was way over here and all that
Yep.
stuff. And so, that's the way I was charted. And early in my career, we was part of a phone company, and they put a project manager with me that Christy was with me for about 20 years until we sold the business. And she was my D, is what she would say, because she was my detail, because I didn't have any.
Yeah.
And it was great to know, because my B, her B was way over here, but her D was awesome for me.
I love it.
And so it's great to kind of guys implement that, and you can probably, it just helps everybody from a communication standpoint.
Yep.
All right. So at this point, you are the VP, a VP, I think at this point, maybe.
I wasn't AVP for very long. It was just about a year.
Okay.
Somewhere there, one of the two.
All right. So VP.
Yeah.
But eventually you take over as the CPO. which I'm sure in that role now, you're probably feeling like this is where I really need to be because I really cast the vision, right? So, yeah. So, okay. So, how long you been the CPO?
2 years, a little over 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, how does that change? Has it changed? Kind of what obviously, I know you're managing now, all of those things, but maybe what's changed over the last couple of years as you're thinking about your vision for the future for Forum?
Yeah. I had this opportunity a couple of years ago when our former chief people officer retired. And she'd been with the company for 40 years.
40.
And yeah, an incredible leader, incredible human being, incredible mentor, just wonderful, wonderful person. And she provided a very long retirement ramp. And this is when I'm ready to go. And it was well planned and it was well thought of. And I knew they wanted to hire internally. And when I thought, I have an opportunity to be considered for this. Like at first, that was never really on my radar. But when we started having these conversations and I started thinking, could that be something I could do? Could I be considered for that? Would I be a candidate for that? I just kept moving forward and ready to embrace it if the opportunity came my way.
Yeah.
And when I did, you talk about things changing, things really change. And something she said to me when she was, we're working through the transition before she was retired, but they kind of named me as her successor. She said, I'm going to tell you something that they told me, that the former CEO told me when I stepped into an executive role, that the executive team has to be your number one team. And the team you've been a part of, this team you've been leading for these years now, at the time, like 9 years, that has to be your number two team now. And that just, it's like it, but you don't really know it.
Yeah.
And to hear that and you think about, okay, that's going to change a lot because this is my team over here.
Yeah.
I've been their leader.
Right.
Some of these people have been with me since I started, 9 years ago. They've been there with the company for longer than I've been there, or people that I had hired to join the team while I was managing or when I was AVP or VP or whatever. And now that has to be my number two team.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm stepping into a new seat. I'm not just changing desks or offices. Like it is definitely a line in the sand, and there is a change coming with that. And so it was helpful to hear that.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to kind of set the tone. I was also inheriting our HR team, and the leader of our HR group had been my counterpart, my peer for a long time.
Right.
And now I was leading her and her team.
Sure.
And so I had to make sure that the talent development side of our team, that they didn't come across as my favorite. I had to lead everybody.
Of course.
And so I really had to deal with a lot of those dynamic shifts over that time. But when you think about where that sets us up for the future, that's where I really felt the silo wasn't working anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to that origin at Forum to say we were kind of this.
That's where I was thinking you were going to go with this, right? You've got this process that happens, but we have two teams that own, parts of the process, but they feel siloed.
Yes.
Okay.
And I knew from having sat in that seat, being part of that team for years, that had to change. I didn't want to lead two separate entities focused on our people. Like, we're here to serve our people. We're here to move our business forward through our people. We're better together when we are apart.
Yeah.
So the thing that had to change was we can't be HR and talent development. We need to come together as like a people and culture team. And sure, there are people who have responsibilities on the HR side, people who are going to manage our payroll process or benefits or employee relations or recruiting. We've got people who are in doing training or onboarding or instructional design or, are managing our learning management system or leadership development. Absolutely. We all kind of have our role, and that's a little bit different. But at the end of the day, we're here to do the same thing. We're here to achieve the same purpose.
Yep.
So setting the stage for long-term change has started there. And as we started peeling that back a little bit, it's not just as simple as saying, well, today, officially, we are going to be called this.
We're all, right.
There's people want to preserve the identity of what they know.
Yeah.
and the value that they bring in their role. And if they feel that that's being diluted at all, then they're going to resist against that a little bit. So we've been moving through this change in a way to honor the experience they all bring in their function, their expertise, while identifying what is our shared vision together.
Yeah.
How are we here to work together as a team and find ways? That's that collaborative nature in me that wants to bring people together rather than kind of pit them against each other. It never felt that way.
Yeah.
But I could see where it could.
Of course.
I just want that.
Yeah. You want a unified team.
Yeah.
The name of the episode should be "We're Better Together Than We Are Apart." It's a great line, right? And so when you think about that, so obviously CPO now, in leading it, but this is a great opportunity. I mean, Forum is a 85-year history, right? You said 50 years in Fishers. Hard to believe, right? So, but maybe just a little bit about Forum as a business.
So Forum is a not-for-profit financial cooperative or a credit union, which means our members of the credit union, those are our customers. Our members, they're also owners of the credit union. And so if you've been to a credit union and you open an account, you have to have that $5 share. That is your share of ownership in Forum Credit Union. And so our members have a voice. And our members are the ones that we pour back into. We don't have shareholders the way a traditional financial institution has. Instead of, trying to return for shareholders, we pour that back into our membership with competitive interest rates and with products and services that are innovative and they keep up with all of the other financial institutions out there.
Yeah,
it's not a unique service that we offer. You can drive down the road and you can find anybody who will open a checking account or a savings account. So our differentiator is our people. And our CEO, Doug True, says it best. He said, we have two shareholders, our members and our team. And so when we can vet our business plan and our decisions that we're making against those two shareholders, like what's best for our member and what's best for our people, like that tells you we invest in our organization deeply by doing what's right for the member, but also because we want to create a team that is skilled and loyal and engaged. And when they show up able to do that, then we can take care of our members. So that's Forum. Like I said, it's not a unique product, that we're going to be able to offer. But when you walk into a branch or you access our chat or our app, you're going to feel that Forum brand and Forum culture alive and well.
Yeah, it's like you said, a lot of businesses really truly are unique. Well, let's be honest, right? A lot of customers do the same things, and then we talk about we have good service, we have good support, our pricing is good, but ultimately, what's the difference in a lot of business? It's the people.
It is,
right? And are these people that we know, like, and trust? Are these people that we believe bring value to us? And when you think about what your CEO said, he talks about the shareholders of, your people and your members. Ultimately, if you make every decision around making it better for those individuals, that's different, right? A lot of companies don't say that, right? And a lot of companies don't do that. And a lot of organizations also from, I know you're the CPO and of the 425 or 450 people for the business, a lot of people don't think about them as being the real value. And I think that's what we've heard. I mean, as you and I chatted over coffee the other day, I heard that pretty heavy in our conversation. And you hear it today as well, that investing in them, leveraging tools like PI, those types of things. Not only do you get to cast the vision, you get a chance to lead great teams and help the organization grow. Super cool. I'm curious. So in the space, when you think about, kind of the way the business is changing and you think about your organization, technology comes up a lot in growth of organizations. Everybody says AI 7,000 times a day. I'm curious, like, what's going on in your space, and are there some things you guys are thinking about from a technology standpoint that's maybe helping supercharge your people even more? What's going on in tech?
Every day. Every day, I think the conversation continues to evolve with that. And, it's this balance in our world of staying innovative and staying on par with the most competitive organizations, from an innovation standpoint and from being able to offer the best products and services, the most tech savvy, offerings that we can. But something that kind of underscores all of that, and it's, I think, even more important in some ways, is the security side of it. And as the pace of change with technology continues to evolve, it's bringing a lot of opportunity, but it's also bringing opportunity for kind of the bad guys out there.
Yeah, sure.
And we are seeing fraud awareness, fraud prevention, being able to help support our members every single day. I mean, it is showing up in just people being scammed.
Yeah.
People, finding out that the person that they were communicating with online isn't who they said they are, and people with elderly relatives or members who themselves are elderly, they're very vulnerable. And how we can equip our team to support both with technology and the controls in place to mitigate some of those risks, but also when we talk about the service, the know, like, and trust factor. When somebody walks into a branch and they're showing this transaction that they want to do, look, I need to wire this money to a Nigerian prince or something, like whatever it might be, that we have a team that's confident and knowledgeable and sensitive and trustworthy to slow things down and say, let's talk about this before you do this.
Yeah.
And we see scenarios playing out, every month, every week, in our branches over the phone, and the team is wonderful about communicating back and forth with one another. We have our internal, like our intranet. We tell stories of this is what happened. We had a member who was in this situation, and this is how the employee helped them through this. Not only does it kind of give kudos to an employee for a job well done, but we all learn from those experiences. So when I think of technology, in our world in particular, it's important to stay cutting edge where you can, and it's certainly important, and we want to stay competitive, but we also want to protect our members, protect our organization, protect all of those best interests of everyone.
It's interesting when you think about tech, and I've had this conversation with everyone that's been on the show so far, but I like how you relate it back to protecting your members, but it goes back to training as well, right? So the people out at branches, they've been trained properly, and they, if you hear something, say something. This seems a little strange. Maybe we ought to say something here out of kindness. But I really like the second part of that is that when somebody comes into a branch and something nefarious is going to happen, it doesn't just end there. They're putting it out on an intranet. Everybody gets a chance to read it. Yeah, of course, I get a little bit of kudos because I did something. But now the whole team is better. The whole team has heard something, some new scam that comes up every day. They've now heard something that people have been able to leverage. And that goes back to, training individuals and those types of things.
Yes.
So it's neat to hear you talk about tech and then bringing it full circle from a training perspective. That's cool.
Oh yeah. And there's such power in storytelling. Like we could send out an email with bullet points. You need to be mindful of that, send out the talking points, or send out the, thou shalt not accept, whatever, the do's and don'ts. But when it's wrapped in a story from someone that they know, that's doing the job every day, that says, well, this is what I noticed. When this came in, this just didn't seem right. And it didn't sit well with me. And so I asked more questions. When you hear a story like that, then that's powerful. And you can embrace the idea of that. Like, okay, if that person dealt with that, I might have to deal with it in my world too.
That's right.
It might be similar. It might be a little different, but I'm taking in building this collection of experiences, through other people. And something that when you think about training, we've had to evolve the way we train people. And something that came to mind a couple of years ago, and I've just not been able to get it out of my mind since, was an experience at a store. And the cashier, it was buying a little bolt at a hardware store, and it cost 94 cents. Hand the cashier $1, and the cashier, probably high school, college age, stood there and stared at the cash drawer and really had to think
About
how to give me the change back.
Yep.
And ultimately counted 6 pennies, even though there were nickels in the drawer. And the downfall of the penny we won't get into or anything. But what hit me in that moment was people coming in. We have a lot of younger employees. We're seeing a sharp rise in Gen Z in our workforce over the last few years. They have a different relationship with money.
Yep.
And we hire a lot of younger people to work in our branches, in our member services like call center, some of these roles where they're answering sophisticated questions about people's finances in the moment, but they themselves have a very different relationship with money.
Sure.
They live in a Venmo world.
Of course.
And it's all done online. And
they don't, when they see the paper dollars, they're like, they don't know what this means.
Yeah.
It's not as valuable to them. It was valuable. It was valuable to me.
Yeah.
And it's not as valuable. Exactly right.
We used to be able to have this baseline assumption that people walking in the door understood the different currency, how much it was, what each dollar kind of represented, and checks, that they kind of understood. Maybe you don't write a lot of them, but you know what they are. And so we could start with this baseline understanding and build from there.
Yep. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have to continue to evolve the way we show up and the way we provide that training, developing and delivering content. So it makes sense. It's meaningful and relevant for the people in the moment of need. Yeah,
sure. Before we get into community and that type of stuff, I'm curious. You mentioned you're hiring a lot of younger people. Yeah. How are you attracting them? I mean, so I'm just curious. Are there some things you're doing out on the website?
I think we're going through a lot of the standard, approaches that a lot of companies do. I wouldn't say it's super unique, but we're consistent with it. When we show up, we're building relationships with local universities, and we show up with some career fairs that they're doing. We'll do some workshops for them. We'll partner with some of the universities, and we'll do resume workshops or just be involved with some things for younger employees. But we're active on LinkedIn, and we're consistent with our posting, and we have our Forum Careers social media pages. So we're showing life at Forum, and we use pictures of real employees doing real things every day, whether it's work related or out in the community or social or whatever we can showcase to say, we talk about Forum being a best place to work, which is another, I think, talent attraction measure. There is 15 consecutive years on that list of best places to work.
That's awesome, by the way.
Thank you. And I think that stands for a lot. We could tell you that all day long, but when you can take that peek behind the curtain.
Sure.
It's the same way with our podcast. We have our own podcast, Career Dreams. We wanted to make sure that was available externally. We don't talk specifically about Forum or credit union related things, but we mention them.
Yep.
And so it's kind of putting your money where your mouth is a little bit and saying,
that's right.
I can tell you all day long it's a great place to work, but if you listen, you see that we pour into our people. You see how deeply we invest in career and leader development because we're sharing this on a career development podcast. Yeah. We have 2 other podcasts as well for different audiences. And so it's been a vehicle that's kind of helped showcase our brand, our culture, our position in, the community, things like that.
It's really great to hear how you guys are attracting folks. And I think that podcast strategy, younger folks go out, they look at a website, they could look at something, they could read something, but the moment they can hear it, or because that's how they consume information today, it's great to hear that culture. So let's talk a little community.
Okay.
And so community could go a couple of different ways, right? It could be the community in your business, which is your culture, which we've talked a lot about culture, I think, with Forum. It's the community you guys serve, which is your members, right? And it's also communities from a nonprofit perspective. So when you think about community, what's that look like for you?
So I think of 2 things. So I was on the right track. So we have our Forum Foundation, which is something that Forum completely funds, and we do scholarships. We do meaningful scholarships that are multi-year renewable scholarships for college students. And we have given, I believe, around $1 million since 2014 in just college scholarships. We also do educator grants. So teachers from around central Indiana can apply for grants, and we're making a difference in how teachers are able to deliver in the classrooms. Like, we know it's hard being a teacher. We know budgets are tight. We know teachers fund a lot of their own initiatives right out of their own pockets.
Yeah.
So this is a way that we can give back and not only support the teachers and just education in general, but those little lives that are in the classrooms from, it might be pre-K through 12. We're making a difference by helping provide resources or materials, whatever that initiative is for the teacher. It's an amazing program, and really, really proud of that. The other side of it is what's driven by our teammates, and that's what we call our Spirit of Forum initiative. And that is something that is that's completely driven by employees. We have what's called a charity of choice, and every year an employee can nominate a local organization that is meaningful to them, and employees will vote on which organization we're going to rally behind and support.
Yeah.
And we do all of our just kind of social or team building or fundraising efforts throughout the year really rallies behind that organization. And so, for example, this year we're supporting Hoosier Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation.
Okay.
This was nominated by an employee. This organization is very near and dear to his family's heart. And so he nominated that, and they'll kind of campaign, share a little bit more about their organization to try to get employees to vote for them. But we'll have 5 or 6 nominees, and that's the one that won this year. And we are providing support with in-kind donations. We'll do donation drives in-house where employees can bring in materials, cleaning supplies, paper towels, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Volunteer opportunities. I saw a picture just yesterday of employees who were over there feeding baby possums and, just helping out at their facility.
Sure. It's cool.
And then the other one is raising money, cash donations.
Sure.
So we'll do our fundraising efforts throughout the year to support that year's charity of choice. And so over the years since that's been started, we've been able to support just a number of organizations, big and small, but all with a local central Indiana presence.
Yeah.
And really make a meaningful difference because we channel our energy into supporting that organization for a year.
You get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
You take a whole year, you support those guys. That's a cool way to do it, right? Is a lot of folks support a lot of different organizations, and that's terrific as well. But when you think about it, you can really make a meaningful impact.
That's right.
In some of those places.
That's
That's awesome.
And some of those, a lot of our employees were not even familiar with before. So it might be something I volunteered here for years, and this is important to my family, but other employees maybe aren't familiar with it. And so it can kind of light a fire. We've seen former charities of choice. People still will go and volunteer, time. We give all employees volunteer time off every year, or it's paid time to go make it really easy to get back to the community where we live and work. So you still see people involved with a group we might have supported, several years ago. It's really cool to see. That's
terrific. And you guys are standing behind it by giving them paid time off to go do that, right? So you create the space for them to do it.
Yeah.
What a cool opportunity. I mean, the forum sounds terrific. So before we finish up, let's talk about fun, right? So a couple of kids, right? And what are the ages of the kids?
29 and 24.
All right. Are they around here?
One is, one is not.
Okay.
So my daughter is my oldest. She's lives in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
So she married a guy from Lincoln, and she's in Lincoln. She's our fourth grade teacher.
Okay.
But she was home this week for spring break, so I got to spend a little time with her. So it was nice. And then my son is local. He graduated from college a couple of years ago. He's getting married this year.
Oh.
But he lives and works around here. And I love having one of my kids close by.
I understand that. So obviously a couple of kids, but outside of work, outside of forum, what's fun for you? What are you doing?
I'm still kind of trying to figure that out in a lot of ways because, I'm an empty nester now.
Yeah.
It's a different season of life where I'm not constantly shuttling somebody around or going to somebody's sporting events because that was life for many years.
Right.
Kids being 5 years apart in age and involved in different things throughout the year, it keeps you hopping, keeps you busy. And so there doesn't leave a lot of time, for yourself. And so these last couple of years, I've really been kind of taking stock of what what that looks like for me. I'm not a big hobby person, but I do enjoy some writing and speaking projects.
Okay.
Like the Association for Talent Development has been an organization I've been involved with for many years, both locally and nationally. And so I'm involved there. So even some of the fun sometimes still has a little bit of a work flavor for me, but I really just am very passionate about it. And some of the people within that organization have become dear friends over the years. So it's still a lot of fun for me, as nerdy as that sounds. Oh, the jury's still out on any other hobbies or anything.
Well, there's still time. There's still time.
That's right.
I'll tell you, this has been an awful lot of fun. I walking through your journey and kind of hearing, being a teacher, then the plot twist, but then finding that you fell in love with something, and then just hearing how each opportunity you had amongst your career was to learn something, and to actually learn in some cases, when you felt disappointed or those types of things, why that was. But it's great to hear how you're leading the team over at Forum and creating a culture and allowing those individuals to be the most successful they can be. And so terrific story. And I certainly appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.